Donald Trump sat, and notice he doesn't stand much anymore, by the way. Anyway, he sat in the Oval Office and he held up a chart. And that chart proved that the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool is longer than a skyscraper is tall. Okay. Somehow that justifies spending $14.2 million of your tax dollars to repaint a shallow pool American flag blue. But we all knew that. But within 24 hours, after they filled this thing back up, we've watched it turn to the exact color of a hot dog that sat on one of those all-you-can-eat buffets way too long. You know, Donald Trump did promise to drain the swamp, and instead, he painted it on and grew a swamp inside the swamp. And for weeks, Donald Trump talked about this pool like a man possessed, almost as if he didn't want you talking about the crumbling economy, the rising prices, the pointless war in Iran, the gross violations of constitutional rights, or the Epstein files. So he went out there and called the reflecting pool filthy, dirty, and disgusting, saying it was feces infested, bragging, "Over the years, I built hundreds of pools. You never want it to leak. You want a beautiful surface." Then he blamed Obama and Biden, and he's blaming them for the algae, or algae if you're across the pond. And he swore that under Donald Trump, this new reflecting pool would be perfect. And he promised it would never get dirty again as long as he was in office. And hell, once it was complete, Breitbart even ran a piece titled, and I wish I were kidding, "Thank you, President Trump," gushing over this renovation. But now, it's back to being a swamp. It was refilled on Tuesday, and by Wednesday, there were workers out there with skimmers scraping green slime off the bottom, all caught on camera, in one single day. The Interior Department's official explanation was that this was residual algae, and that's part of the normal startup process, and that nanobubblers, it's a great word, nanobubblers, would keep it clean. Nanobubblers. We spent $14.2 million, and now we have to fight algae with a word that sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. The nanobubblers. Meanwhile, the New York Times has found that the 12-inch pipes that are circulating the 4 million gallons of water keep rupturing under the soil pressure. It's a fancy way of saying the whole thing is a $14.2 million leak. Just now it has a blue bottom. It is leaking. It is filthy, just like Donald Trump promised it wouldn't. And look, The Daily Show, they pointed this out. I won't take credit for it, but they pointed out that maybe this man can't win a war or end a war or get a physical without summoning 22 doctors. But you'd think he could keep a pool clean. Spoiler, he could not keep the pool clean. And while the pool is busy becoming a brand new ecosystem, something like the Everglades crossed with corrupt politicians, let's walk about a mile down the road from it to the Kennedy Center, where you find an even more pathetic new feature to this man's ego. A federal judge ruled that back in May that it was flat out illegal for Trump to slap his name on the Kennedy Center because Congress named it after a slain president and only Congress can rename it. So Donald Trump was ordered to take his name down and they challenged it and lost all the challenges. And this is where Donald Trump's thin skin really shows. Well, this and all of the gross skin bruises on his hands. Trump's workers couldn't just take these letters down. Nope. Crews first threw scaffolding up and then draped the entire facade in a giant tarp. That way they could remove the 18 or so bronze letters behind the curtain so nobody could watch it happen. And according to reports, around 150 people showed up in the middle of the late night, early morning in a thunderstorm to witness this little moment of accountability. And people ended up booing and screaming, "Cover up," and "cowards" at the workers because they were hiding the whole thing. And where this part gets so sad, as of me filming this, days later, the tarp is still up. There are even tarp watch live streams that you can find online because apparently Donald Trump's goons and his people that are running that building would rather leave the nation's premier arts center looking like a crime scene under a striped sheet than let you see it go back to simply reading John F. Kennedy. You have an alleged grown man, his entire administration, and they are so allergic to seeing another president's name without his own bolted above it that they would rather tarp the building shut. I guess it's the same energy as when they put the letters up. They used a tarp to dramatically unveil Donald Trump's name going on. Tarp on the way in, tarp on the way out. This whole presidency is like the worst magic show ever, where there's never anything good behind the curtain. So how does a man like Donald Trump, respond to a week of algae and tarps and humiliation? He decides he needs to throw himself another party. This week, Donald Trump announced that the 4th of July celebration on the National Mall for America's 250th birthday will be, in his exact all caps letters, the most spectacular Trump rally of them all. Yep, that's how you unite America and celebrate 250 years of our grand experiment. I want you to keep in mind how Gerald Ford celebrated our bicentennial, and this comes directly from a June 15th Deadline article. I wasn't alive then, so I'm just going to read you what they put in their article. Trump's plans are a contrast to those of President Gerald R. Ford on the bicentennial of July 4th, 1976. That day, Ford visited Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, then spoke in Philadelphia, followed by a viewing of the tall ships in New York. And he directed his speechwriters that there be no campaign code words or partisan insinuations whatsoever, even as Ford was running for re-election. Stirring stuff. But Trump is now throwing himself a party, and he's going to call it Tribute to America. More like Tribute to Trump. And he's promised the largest fireworks show in history, military flyovers, 300 military band members, and his own personal playlist piped through the National Mall. And the highlight, a sure-to-be incoherent rant from the one and only Donald J. Trump. The country turns 250 years old, and of all of the history that Donald Trump wants to highlight, he wants to just highlight himself. Come watch me. Me, the twice impeached felonious president with record low approval numbers, set against the backdrop of his beautiful algae lagoon a mile from a building that he has to cover up his shame with a tarp. Washington, D.C., yes, is the swamp. The swamp is there, it's back, it's green, and the swamp monster's name came off of a building, and now he's literally covering it up. Do me a favor, comment below. How would you have rather seen that $14 million pool money spent?